Carl Jung talked about how he believed that there wasn't necessarily a distinction between our psyche or our mind or our consciousness and the external world. So oftentimes we perceive this distinction or this duality between our mind as one thing and the external reality as a different thing. And Carl Jung created this idea of synchronicity. And he talks about how our psyche or our consciousness, our mind, and the external world are not two different things. They're interlaced, and because they're interlaced, if we're paying attention, we'll begin noticing synchronicities between the mind and the external reality because they're connected. Some people posit or hypothesize or create theories that our consciousness is not our brain, that our mind is not our brain, but that our mind and our consciousness interacts with our brain while we are alive. So there's theories that our consciousness and other people's consciousnesses can connect, almost similar to like two computers and Wi-Fi, or two radio players and radio signals. And this idea helps us to understand why synchronicities may arise. So things appear to be random in the universe, but then the timing of certain things and why certain things happen seems statistically improbable in what appears to be a random universe. But from this perspective, things are not so random, and there's certain connections between why things happen. And it's the dynamics between our consciousness and other people's consciousnesses. People like Terence McKenna speak of how if we actually pay attention to our synchronicities, then our life can become more magical. Osho, he spoke about how in order to even notice that synchronicities are occurring in your life or in life in general, you have to be paying attention. There has to be a certain level of awareness. Many people are very distracted or very busy, and they're not noticing the different synchronicities in their life. Sometimes there seems to be a dynamic between intuition and synchronicities, where if you follow your intuition and not your logical or conceptual or rational or reasoning mind, and you follow your intuition, it'll lead to the noticing of more synchronicities. So there are different types of examples of synchronicities. For example, you're thinking of someone and then they send you a message on some kind of social media app. Or, for example, you have a dream at nighttime and then something in the day occurs which seems to correspond to your dream. So the dream almost acts as a metaphor for what is going to happen later in the day. Again, this doesn't always occur, but sometimes it does occur. And again, it's very kind of subjective. So you have the experience of having the dream, you have the experience of what happens in your waking life, and then you notice that there may or may not be a connection between those two things. I have heard that the Mayan people, or perhaps it was the Aztecan people, believed that our dreams are something that gives us a heads up for what may come in the waking day. Sometimes we can get really conceptual, so we're using our logical mind and we're trying to understand things conceptually, and this is occurring in our mind. And then there's the experience of being alive and being present. If one does follow their intuition, then they may start to notice more synchronicities, especially if they're trying to develop more awareness and they're trying to pay attention to more things that are occurring in their mind and externally in the world. And this can make your life more meaningful because you're starting to see different patterns that you maybe would not have noticed if you weren't paying attention. And this can, again, like Terence McKenna was saying, make your life more magical. As I was mentioning before, sometimes in our dreams, they act as metaphors for what may come. Again, not always, but sometimes this does appear to be the case. Also, many artists who create more kind of dreamlike work or surreal work, they speak of how they may make some kind of a painting, and then there may be certain things in it that act in a similar way that's analogous to a dream, where the art is metaphorical and it gives the artist a sense of what's to come. But oftentimes it's the case for artists, including myself, where the thing happens in life and then later we see the art and the connection between the art and what happened in our life. And there appears, it could not be the case, but it appears that there's a connection or a correlation between the art kind of having a premonition for what is to come. Now again, there are many different ways that synchronicities can be interpreted, and in the future, I wouldn't be surprised if humans come up with other creative interpretations of why synchronicities occur. Of course, for those of the many of us that believe in a God, they would believe these synchronicities to be messages or omens from God, or maybe angels, etc. For those who believe in, let's say, enlightened beings, they may think that these are messages from the enlightened beings. For those people who maybe believe in the mandate of heaven, kind of an idea from China, they may see it as a synchronicity coming from kind of the heavens, some kind of a feedback loop from reality. This would be kind of similar to like the Tao, could be potentially interpreted as like the Tao or the universe giving an individual feedback. But again, that could be looked at in two different ways. Like there's the universe and there's you, and there's two different things. You're distinctly different from the universe. And then there's the non-dual perspective where you are the universe, that you are connected with the universe as we all are. And that kind of interconnectedness with all other consciousnesses and the universe as a whole. And that as you're more connected and paying more attention, you start to be more sensitive to all of the different synchronicities that are occurring. And that, again, that could be more magical, meaningful, insightful, and it can provide some level of, or some degree of direction and clarity in your life. Again, are these the facts? Is this the truth? These are just things to ponder. They may not be a part of reality, but synchronicities are an interesting part of life because life appears random, and there's these things that appear to be statistically improbable to occur, but then if you're really paying attention, there's a lot of different patterns that one can recognize, and that can be insightful and meaningful and magical. I forgot to mention that for some people that are paying attention to synchronicities, they don't attribute the synchronicities to any being in particular. They attribute it to a law that exists in the universe. For Buddhists, it's called karma, without any kind of creator God. And they say these synchronicities arise due to previous causes and conditions, leading to certain effects that are occurring in the present moment. But it's all predicated on the belief in the law of karma. To better understand how things arise as a result of karma, we have to understand that Buddhists believe in reincarnation.